You walk into a room, scan a sea of faces, and then, bam, it happens. One person just grabs your attention. There's this immediate, undeniable pull, a feeling, a spark. You probably think you know what makes a face attractive. You see someone, and you just get a vibe. It feels simple, intuitive, almost like magic. But what if that feeling is just the final step in a hidden program? Your brain has been running your whole life, a program coded and refined over millions of years of evolution, one that runs in a fraction of a second, way before you're even aware of it. We're about to expose the surprising science of facial attraction and reveal the secret biological and psychological codes that are really pulling the strings of your desire. This isn't about taste or preference, not in the way you think. This is about a complex, deeply wired system running in the background of your mind. It's built on ancient survival instincts, lightning-fast brain processing, and subtle social cues you don't even notice. We're going to pull back the curtain on this hidden machine. We'll break down the 3 fundamental codes your brain uses to make these split-second decisions. First, we'll get into the biological blueprint, the evolutionary hardware installed in all of us. Then, we'll dive into the psychological triggers, the cognitive software that makes sense of it all in an instant. And finally, we'll look at the social overlays, the cultural and personal data that customizes this program just for you. By the end of this, you'll never look at a face the same way again. You'll see that the feeling of attraction isn't random, it's a calculation. And we're about to show you how it works. Let's start at the very beginning, not your beginning, but the beginning of our species. For our ancestors, picking a partner wasn't about romance. It was about survival. It was about finding someone whose genes, mixed with their own, would create the healthiest kids possible. This high-stakes game forged a set of preferences into our DNA, a kind of biological blueprint for what we find hot. This isn't a conscious checklist. You're not walking around with a clipboard rating people. This is a deep, primal program that automatically scans faces for honest signs of health, fertility, and good genes. Let's break down the main parts of this ancient code. First up, and probably the most famous signal, is symmetry. On the surface, it's simple. We like faces that are balanced and even. But why? The reason is pretty deep. Evolutionarily speaking, a symmetrical face is proof of developmental stability. Think about it. Your genes are a set of instructions for building you. But during development, you get hit with all sorts of challenges, illness, bad nutrition, parasites. These things can mess up the plan. If someone can withstand all that and still come out with a perfectly symmetrical face, it's an honest signal that they have a tough immune system and strong genes. It's like a visual certificate of health. Our brains, on a subconscious level, see this. Even when we can't consciously spot tiny asymmetries, our minds perceive them and are subtly biased toward the more balanced face. This is so fundamental that even babies will stare longer at faces that adults rate as symmetrical and attractive. The next piece of the blueprint sounds a little weird: averageness. When you hear average, you probably think plain or boring. But in attraction science, average means something totally different. It means prototypical, not unremarkable. Scientists figured this out by creating composite faces. They took hundreds of individual photos and used software to merge them into a single, mathematically average face. And what they found was wild. This new, composite face was almost always rated as more attractive than the real, individual faces used to make it. So, why would we be drawn to average? The leading theory is that an average face represents a diverse and successful mix of genes. A face with really unusual features might signal a harmful mutation. An average face, on the other hand, suggests genetic diversity and a strong, stable genetic makeup that's been proven to work. It's a safe bet. Your brain sees an average face and its ancient programming says, this model is tried and true. It's a signal of genetic stability, just like symmetry. Now let's talk about the most obvious part of the code, sexual dimorphism. That's just the scientific way of saying the visible differences between male and female faces, all driven by hormones. These features are like billboards, broadcasting information about fertility and fitness. In women, estrogen drives the development of features we see as feminine: larger eyes, a smaller chin, and a less prominent jaw. These are essentially signs of youth and high estrogen levels, and therefore high fertility. And it's not just bone structure. Studies have found that traits like having fuller lips are also seen as strong attractiveness cues. Across cultures, faces with more of these feminine features are consistently rated as more attractive. In men, the story is a bit more complicated. Testosterone is what builds traditionally masculine features: a stronger jawline, a prominent brow, and high cheekbones. These features signal a powerful immune system. See, testosterone is actually tough on the immune system, so it's metabolically expensive. Only a genuinely healthy man can afford to have high levels of it and build those features. A masculine face can be an honest signal of good genes, however. The preference for masculinity isn't universal, while femininity is almost always preferred in female faces. A woman's preference for a more masculine man can change depending on things like her own hormone cycle. Plus, while some research has pointed to these features, other studies have suggested a general preference for more feminine or less hypermasculine features even in men, challenging old assumptions. This shows that our biological blueprint isn't a simple switch. It's a complex system that weighs different signals, including things like grooming and hairstyle, which can also signal health and vitality. Finally, the biological code does a quick scan for obvious, real-time health cues, things like smooth, clear skin, bright eyes, and healthy hair. These aren't just for looks, they are instant indicators of a person's vitality. Clear skin signals an immune system that's doing its job. Bright eyes suggest health and youth. These aren't deep genetic signals like symmetry. They're a live status update on a person's physical condition. Someone can have a symmetrical, average face, but if their skin is broken out and their eyes are dull, our attraction drops because those immediate health cues can override everything else. If the biological blueprint is the hardware, the psychological triggers are the software. This is the code that takes all those biological signals and processes them with insane speed, creating the feeling of attraction. This process is so fast, so deep in our brains, that it happens almost completely outside of our awareness. Brain scan studies show that our brains tell the difference between attractive and unattractive faces in about 100 milliseconds. That's literally faster than you can blink. Before you've even had a real thought about a person, your brain has already seen them, analyzed them, and delivered its verdict. How? It all comes down to the brain's reward system. When you look at a face your brain decides is attractive, it triggers a powerful response in your pleasure and reward circuit. This is the same area that lights up when you eat amazing food or listen to a great song. Seeing an attractive face is, neurologically speaking, a rewarding experience. Your brain gets a little hit of dopamine, the feel-good chemical. That positive feedback loop is what creates the immediate sense of pleasure and desire. It's your brain screaming, "Hey, pay attention to this one. This is good." But the brain is also lazy. It loves shortcuts to deal with all the information it's constantly getting. It uses mental rules of thumb or heuristics to make quick judgments. And for attractive faces, the biggest shortcut is the halo effect. This is a well-known bias where we automatically assume that attractive people also have other good qualities. We see a beautiful face and our brain just leaps to the conclusion that this person must also be smarter, kinder, and more successful than someone less attractive. This isn't logical, it's an automatic association. The "what is beautiful is good" stereotype is programmed deep into our psychology. This bias has huge consequences, influencing everything from who gets hired to how we treat strangers. We are fundamentally biased to think better of people we find attractive, and it all starts with that split-second, automatic judgment. Another huge psychological trigger is familiarity, often called the mere exposure effect. The idea is simple. The more we see something, the more we like it. This works for songs, for brands, and especially for faces. Repeated exposure to a face makes us feel more positively about it and find it more attractive. Again, this has deep evolutionary roots. In our ancestors' world, familiar meant safe. People you saw all the time were your tribe. They weren't a threat. A totally new face, however, could mean danger, so our brains learn to prefer the familiar as a survival reflex. This is why your type might be shaped by the faces you saw growing up, your family, friends, and community. It's also why someone you feel neutral about at first can get more attractive over time. Your brain is literally updating its database of safe and good faces. Our personal life experiences are so important that they can account for up to 50% of our individual preferences. Finally, our psychological processing isn't just about what we see, but how we see it. Eye tracking studies have found fascinating differences in how men and women scan faces, suggesting we're subconsciously looking for different things. For example, when rating female faces, men tend to look more at the mouth, a feature tied to youth and fertility. Women, when rating male faces, tend to focus more on the eyes. It's been suggested that women do this to look for clues about trustworthiness and sociability, pretty crucial information when you're considering a long-term partner. This shows our brains aren't just passively looking at a picture. They're actively hunting for specific information based on deep-seated strategies. If biology is the hardware and psychology is the operating system, then culture and your life experiences are the apps you install on top. This final code is what customizes our perception of attraction, creating the incredible diversity of preferences we see across the world and even within our own lives. While the basic rules of symmetry and health are pretty much universal, the specific features that are considered the ideal version of those things are heavily shaped by our environment. Think of it like language. All humans have the built-in biological ability to learn a language, but the specific one you speak is determined entirely by the culture you grow up in. Beauty standards work in a similar way. The media you watch, the celebrities who are famous, and the opinions of your friends all create a cultural idea about what's beautiful. These standards can change dramatically over time and across cultures. This cultural programming is incredibly powerful, and it fine-tunes our perception, telling us which specific eye shape, skin tone, or body type is in right now. This is also why that averageness idea is so interesting. An average face is, by definition, specific to a population. An average face made from East Asian faces will look very different from one made from European faces. Our brains get used to the faces we see most often, and that becomes our baseline for what looks average, familiar, and therefore attractive. On top of that, attraction isn't judged in a vacuum. Context is everything. Your own mental state can change who you find attractive. For instance, research shows that when you're in a committed relationship, your brain might actually start to downplay how attractive other potential partners are. This derogation effect is a cool psychological trick that helps protect your relationship. On the other hand, if you're single and looking, you might be way more tuned into attractiveness cues. Your goals and your mood act as filters, changing the settings on the attraction program. This brings us to the most personal layer, your unique life experience. Every important relationship, every friendship, every good and bad social interaction has created a private library of facial data in your brain. Think about the face of someone you love, a partner, a parent, a best friend. Over time, the warm feelings you have for them get linked to their specific facial features. Your brain learns to associate those features with trust and happiness. As a result, you might find yourself more attracted to other people who share some of those features because they subconsciously trigger that same positive feeling. This is so powerful that it's been found to be the single biggest factor in explaining why even identical twins who share the same genes and grew up in the same house often have completely different tastes in partners. Their unique, individual life experiences have literally written different attraction code. So, let's put it all together. Go back to that moment you walk into a room and your eyes lock onto one person. What's really happening in that split second? It isn't magic, it's a symphony of computation. A seamless flow of all three codes firing in perfect, rapid succession. In the first tenth of a second, before you're even truly aware of it, your brain has snapped a picture and its ancient biological hardware is running the numbers. It has subconsciously checked the face for symmetry, a clue to good development. It's compared it to a mental prototype to judge its averageness, a signal of genetic fitness. It's registered the hormonal markers of fertility, and it scanned the skin and eyes for a quick health report. This is the raw data dump, instantly. That data is fed into your psychological software. The brain's reward system kicks in. If the face scores high on the biological tests, you get a microdose of dopamine that feels good and flags the face as valuable. The halo effect immediately starts its work, priming you to believe this attractive person is probably a good person. 2. Your eyes, guided by subconscious goals, might dart to their eyes or mouth, hunting for the most important data. This whole cascade creates that initial, powerful feeling of attraction. But it doesn't stop there. The entire process is being filtered through the third code, your social and environmental overlays. Your brain cross-references the face with the cultural beauty standards you've soaked up your whole life. Does this person fit the mold? It also checks the face against your personal, emotional database. Does this person remind you even a little of someone you have a good history with? Finally, it checks the context. Are you single? Happy? Your brain adjusts the final output based on your current life situation. And all of this, the biological analysis, the psychological reward, and the social filtering happens in the blink of an eye. It collapses into a single, unified experience, a feeling, that spark, that sense of just knowing. What feels like a simple, intuitive pull is actually the breathtakingly complex output of a hidden program that has analyzed a person's genetic history, health, cultural desirability, and personal meaning for you, all before you've even had time to say hello. It's not one thing, it's everything, all at once. So, the next time you feel that instant, magnetic pull towards a face, you'll know what's really going on. You'll know that it's not just some random feeling, but the result of a sophisticated program running in the background of your mind. It's a program built on ancient evolutionary wisdom, a biological blueprint seeking health. It's run by lightning-fast psychological triggers that reward you and use clever shortcuts to guide you. And it's customized by a lifetime of social and environmental overlays that tune your preferences to your culture and your own personal story. Attraction is one of the most fundamental human experiences, driven by forces we can barely perceive. It's a beautiful dance between our shared human biology and our unique individual journeys. The science of it doesn't take away the magic. If anything, it reveals a deeper, more intricate, and far more fascinating magic than we ever imagined. The magic of the human mind itself. If you found this deep dive into the hidden codes of our brains fascinating, and you want to learn more about the science behind why we do the things we do, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're always decoding the surprising science of everyday life, and you won't want to miss what we uncover next. Thanks for watching.